Good afternoon, good evening, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First Data here with Casey and Klemen, continuing our uh, favorite theme of the year, AI ROI, all week on the Value First network. How's everybody doing?
Doing splendid.
Excited to talk about AI ROI. I can feel it.
Yes. Chris already knows this is my least favorite topic. Maybe no. I just think it's an elusive. It's elusive.
Why we're putting the elephant in the room and center of the table, right?
Yes.
One bite at a time.
Let's get him.
Sure.
So this approach is the opposite of, man, how do we make these hours make sense? How do we make all of our old dashboards work? How do we make AI work and then prove it and then get buy-in and all of the stuff that marketers have been used to for like decades, by the way. But yeah, Clement, I'm interested. You touched on it yesterday a little bit, but you guys have been doing the AirOps hug. Have you touched on specific ROI topics yet?
The AirOps hug, not yet. Interestingly enough, no one asked directly about it in a way that it would be, a live discussion. But from our internal discussions and what I'm talking to existing customers and also, new customers, it is an open discussion all the time. How do you measure that? And honestly, my feeling is I don't have the right answer or a really good answer, trying to figure it out. But it is measured differently than what we've been used to. When someone asked you about ROI several years ago about something else, not AI.
Yeah, and it's becoming one of those things like, I'm just gonna share my screen here because most people know the math doesn't work. Like the hours, I mean, it feels like most people should know. I guess maybe some don't, but it takes them seeing the data to know that it's different, at least. But then they start changing. Like you're expected to do more, or like it's just okay. Let's get the volume or efficiency. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and she's done a great job of giving complete visibility into her AI agents. This was Leica Wooters, who was OpenClaw, hooked into HubSpot, see all the tokens, and it's the best, one of the best dashboards I've seen. In terms of she knows exactly how much she's spending and what the output looks like in terms of actions being taken or activity, right? But when I ask about creating value, her and everybody else I've talked to, it's like they cannot answer that question from a perspective of value, creation. It's what do we save? What are we doing less of? What do we don't like? What did we not like that we don't have to do anymore? Right? And it's amazing to watch people they're like, oh yeah, no, this is how it's creating value for me. I'm saving time. It's more efficient. It's like, okay, what are you doing? take more time because over here you're like, you don't have time for anything still.
Mhm.
And like, even though that's true, they still can't describe the extra, like the opportunities that we're all experiencing and like the fun that we're having and just this new like belief and capabilities that we've never had before, right? So I would love for it to be as easy as uh, start measuring whether AI is creating value. But what we're finding is like people don't know how to define this part,
Yeah.
like at all.
I
Go ahead,
I
Kiss.
brought this up yesterday on a call that I was having, how, once we start moving into this credit system inside of HubSpot, like once people are actually paying for credits, not just using the credits that are part of their subscription, this is obviously going to become more important. I think one of the tricky things when we say value is, what does value mean? And Chris, you mentioned at the top, like marketing has been held to this for a long time. Marketing teams have been asked about ROI and value for a long time, and we've always tied that to revenue. How much revenue can you attribute to this campaign and things like that? But when we talk about AI, value isn't just revenue always, it's efficiencies, there's so much in the background that's really hard to measure.
I would say no. The tricky part is the untangible ROI, which is why it's hard to say the value of it. Like, okay, yeah, AI agent saved you 5 hours. So you did, a process in 10 minutes that you spent 5 hours last month. What have you done in those 4 hours and 50 minutes? It's hard to say because you still worked for 8 hours. You didn't feel, you just, you did something else, maybe a backlog, or you just, had a good coffee time for 5 minutes, which you could not have. And then because of that, you felt better at your workspace, which is really the untangible value, I think, for the humans working in a company. You just relieve them part of their pressure. We were at one of the sales calls, talking with a lady who is managing their entire order taking process, and she said, "I'm not taking any vacation. I work 12 hours a day, and I click through our ERP system for 6 hours a day because I'm copy pasting values from one field to another." I mean, to me, it's clear we should cut off those 6 hours by an agent, and she'll still work 8 hours. It's just she'll be at peace, and she could survive more than next 6 months doing things at that pace, and the processes won't break. So it's not how much more she'll do, but maybe how better she will feel at that work. So she will stay with the company, maybe more than next 6 months because she'll burn out herself. I don't know how to measure that, but to me, if you can, one AI agent can, take that burden from one person, I think it's, this is the investment in your employees, which I think is real now. Where at least in Slovenia, I keep hearing more and more that, there is no too many people with good talent being available to hire to grow the company, which means you need to make it work with the existing team, which means you need to keep it, not only force them to do more.
Force them to do more. Um,
When we have this conversation too, and I keep going back to a conversation that Chris, you and I had with a client a few months ago, where one of our clients said he felt like asking the ROI on AI was similar to asking the ROI on his laptop. And like, I don't know. It's just like, it just is. And I think every time you say AI ROI, I think of that. But that's not how finance teams are looking at it right now, and boards are looking at it, I don't think.
I'm desperately searching for a definition that I've created recently around the word value.
Chris creates so much stuff
start
all the
there.
time.
Well, this is like just to kind of, so not a new thought, right? Like last year, right before Inbound, I started talking about this concept of value as the like first principle.
Mhm.
And recently I honed in, like, because I'm getting obnoxious with the way that's like, all right, if that word sucks and that word makes AI do a bunch of sucky things,
Mhm.
I'm not going to use it anymore. Like
Mhm.
the first word I started doing that with was lead. But then even stuff like GTM, business unit, like
Mhm.
all these things where it's like at some point it all points to like the P&L statement.
Mhm.
And basically if like that's the flow, if you can trace a decision process back to that, there's so much value that it just doesn't fit. Like you cannot make it fit into a P&L because P&Ls are not meant to be feel good, subjective stuff, right? You're not supposed to be able to like
Interpret
invest, right? It's not supposed to be up for interpretation, and we're supposed to be investing in businesses that are doing well. And how do we know they're doing well? They have strong P&L statements. Not they have a bunch of happy employees adding value to the world. Although there's use cases every now and then that you hear about where companies have figured that out, but it's never by accident. Like it's kind of like you have to start from there, from first principles or values, and then live it, right? So we have like some thoughts though, just to start to help us have this conversation, and like why some of the things we're used to maybe. So this page came from Share the Idea with Trisha, Miriam, and Aaron Wiggers. Lots of AI data readiness conversations over there, because that's one thing we all know. Like if you want to calculate good ROI, you have to understand the R and the I, and they both have to be clean and trusted, which is why we look to things like hours and number of people involved and number of tickets closed and all these super measurable things. But here we're highlighting the measurement trap. So I'll just highlight like time saved per task. Probably the most common one. And it's crazy things like tasks that human was never, ever going to do. But now all of a sudden, right, assumes the task was worth doing in the first place. Saving 4 hours on a report nobody reads is not value. It is faster waste. Uh, Tasks eliminated or transformed, work that no longer exists because AI changed the approach entirely is what we should be looking for, right? As this is an example of like trying to help look at it from this other perspective. And that's where, like, if you can, AI can help you do this. You just have to ask it to. You have to look in these spaces.
Mhm.
And it's pretty fun to do that right now. And each AI company is coming out with their own version of um, like learn how you work with Claude. Learn about how you work with Claude. It just came out, right? And you can ask stuff like this. What was I doing 6 months ago that I'm not doing now? And then if it tells you something you hated doing, then you're like, oh yeah, man, that feels good. It's like
Yeah.
ROI. There you go.
I mean, this goes back to the unlock of tasks or activities that you just never got to it. This is the backlog of wishful thinking. I think a good example for that is if you get to a rep asking the ROI or what AI enabled you. It's not that it saved someone 30 minutes with a follow-up email, but within those 30 minutes you could get the full context. You could write a way better follow-up email. You could check their LinkedIn activities. You could relate to that, so the connection is just better because of that. It's not that you saved 30 minutes for a follow-up. No, maybe you still spend 30 minutes, but the amount of context you could gather in that same amount of time is just levels different.
When I first started using AI, the first like real use of AI I did was copywriting, email and ad copywriting. And I remember at the time saying a lot, like every time I mentioned it, I would say to people, I'm not spending less time on the copy, but the outcome is better, rather than, me just thinking of what are 10 different ways I can say the same thing and which of these 10 ways is the best. I just, I instantly, I used to just, I would write an email and then I would send it to probably ChatGPT at the time. And then I'd say, write it differently, write it differently, write it differently. And like, then I would just start Frankensteining together the pieces that I liked. And that's not what I do anymore necessarily, but I do think still with AI, I haven't gotten to the point of with AI where I'm bored or, watching TV instead of working. It's just my time is spent like doing different things. Trisha a couple of weeks ago was talking about how she uses Claude to clean up data. So before she does an import, she'll send the spreadsheet through Claude and it will, fix capitalizations and spelling errors and things like that. And she said to me, and I would never do that myself. And I looked at her and I said, you would, and I've seen you do it before. It's been a year even. Like it hasn't even been that long. But some of that just like manual work. Yeah. And I mean, just over the weekend, I was talking to some friends about AI, and there is a real concern with AI taking the jobs of like junior people. And obviously the concern there is like those junior people need to start somewhere, and if they never get the junior job because AI is doing that, what do they do next? Which Chris is making a face, which makes me think he has an opinion on this. But what I think is like, I don't know if a junior person's learning a whole lot from going through a spreadsheet and capitalizing names. Like that's not teaching them anything. It's not teaching them anything they wouldn't learn if I just told them to put it into AI. Like, outside of the concept that data needs to be clean, I don't think the process of manually doing a lot of that stuff is adding value.
Yeah, I
Like-
would agree with that.
Yeah. And that's the premise of this site and our approach. Like, you're not building anything if you're moving through a spreadsheet, fixing stuff or looking through code. Like, if the purpose is to fix stuff, which usually in those moments, it's like you'll learn something the hard way, right? Now you can learn everything the easy way. But you have to build something.
Mhm.
And like, it's never been easier to just blow the whole resume system out of the water. Like your
Mhm.
portfolio, you can build whatever portfolio you want to build.
Mhm.
So yeah, like, and it can be seen as a little bit insidious in nature in that we're not seeing it like direct job loss. We're seeing we don't want to hire juniors anymore because
Mhm.
nobody should really be a junior. Like,
Mhm.
and the hiring process has gotten way harder
Mhm.
at that level because you can fake it most of the way through. But like once you start doing the work of seniors, it shows immediately if you really haven't worked with AI that long. And all companies really want from anybody right now is some honesty and some authenticity of like, hey, here I am in my journey and here's where I want to go. Knowing that that you can go anywhere you want and that the company needs to figure out things like ROI and being AI native and all these things that most of the people inside of the organization aren't necessarily enabled to do because they got like the day job still. They've got customers to serve and the customers aren't ready for it. It's the best dynamic to watch between like HubSpot and their customer base right now, where it's like HubSpot is delivering things like this. This is a new private beta. And like I could tie it to ROI so easily.
Mhm.
But it's something that like I have no idea how they're going to charge credits for this.
Mhm.
But there are things happening behind the scenes where Breeze Assistant, there's like AI turns happening in the background that are hitting limits that aren't necessarily associated with credits directly because HubSpot can see how much we're using the portal.
Mhm.
But like this is vibe coding inside of HubSpot without using like the update actually says like no code. You don't even have to open up the developer platform. It's like as soon as Dharmesh dropped hub code, it's like this is coming at some point this year. And when you can use that to build content calendars and client engagement task, boards, and a lot of the stuff that we've always struggled to do. And like, again, the ROI, it's like you can, like, the value creation is going to come from the output in some way. But the difference between output with a focus on volume and output with a focus on value, like, is dramatically different, right? And if you're focused on hours saved in efficiency, that drives you to volume, not value, right? Especially now, like when I know, but it's all relative, right? Like the same company, if I have a fix that I know to be easy, I do not want to talk to a human. I expect you to solve it with a great AI chat or some AI directed thing that I can do really quickly on my own or plug into with my AI. But if I'm not sure and it's like very ambiguous, I might want to have an hour long conversation like
Mhm.
with somebody, and they're both closed tickets. So if those things are 2 for 2 closed tickets, like you're totally missing, like the value was created in both situations, and it really had nothing to do with the ticket closing. It's how the ticket was closed. I guess that counts as response quality and engagement depth here.
Yeah, I mean that definitely goes back to what I was previously saying. How better you can connect the dots, or how better you can respond to an email or to a request or whatever you're doing, because of that. As I see the value, let's say, for the agency type of work. In the past, the value was in configuring the UI and setting things up and all that, and creating 50 new properties with the right dropdowns and whatnot. This is now a matter of a click and a prompt to Claude, which means it's no longer hours. It's one prompt away, and you have everything perfectly built. So the value is moving from clicking through everything to having the same hour invested in a communication with a customer, to maybe instead of 50 properties build only 20 because you need 20, and maybe change the process because of that, and 1 hour discussion. And so the value is shifting. Of course, then the business model and everything needs to shift, but because of AI, you can afford that 1 hour long conversation. Yes. I can take 1 hour to talk with you about your process and question it and give you the mirror and ask the tough questions, because now we have that bandwidth for 1 hour long conversation. And throughout that, with a note taker, we'll define 5 things to build. I have then my AI note taker giving me a transcript. I can use that transcript to define those 5 things, and then Claude builds it. So within 1 hour and 15 minutes, we have the same thing done, but at a whole better level of quality, because we could afford that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're not sure what happened, but like, because this happens, it's like, man, that was a refreshing conversation. Turning around and asking, why do you think that I think that was a refreshing conversation? Because I'm not sure, but maybe you can see something that all of that is available to everybody. Like, to just ask these questions of where is the value? Tell me 10 different ways that value was created in this call. Look at this record and look at the history and the data and when it's changed and how. Mm-hmm. Tell us where the value was generated. So there's 3 buckets here that we're going to talk about. And of course, the first 2 are about revenue, but the third one is not. And we'll save that one for the end. But revenue influenced, right? And again, this is where, when you have AI there to help look at the landscape, including what people are saying on social and in Slack and on Reddit. And like you can see, if you want to learn what's being said or what's being mentioned or what could have possibly influenced the deal closing, you can. And so if your system shows like AI was involved in these points, if you're doing the documentation, it just can't be to the point where it's like, oh, you had 10 agents involved. That must have been a lot of value created there. And again, this is something I've started doing, like, because whether it's a good outcome or a bad outcome with my agent team, I'm starting to ask and starting to build in more. If you don't have evidence from the primary source, like it often happens where they tell me a property or association doesn't exist in HubSpot because they're looking at outdated documentation and not directly in HubSpot. So they try to take shortcuts, like trying to save us tokens, creating moments where it's like, what is the specific activity that happened related to this outcome or related to why you think there was value created? And then having those conversations, let's say you're having it with Breeze, and then at the end, let's say document this. Let's start looking for that in all of our records throughout all of our relationships. Let's look at the rest of our closed won deals for all time and see if we see similar trends or the top 3 trends that are never going to be like on a dashboard. No shortage of ideas over here, guys.
Never once.
Never one. Too many, probably. But it almost feels like just seeing this like not self-reported here. Like if you're the one asking AI, you know how AI works. You could create some really good feeling, self-reports about how much value was created on that 5-minute call that you just had.
I mean, one change that I'm seeing internally since we started recording all the huddles and all the internal discussions is when we need to prepare for a call or write a proposal, we now have 30 minutes discussion back and forth, how to frame that, what is a better angle, what is not the right frame for the proposal. Then I use that transcript, give to Claude to help me iterate with everything we just discussed, and then we make another iteration. So it's directly AI helping me. And often I see how AI is able to connect the dots and frame the story in a better, clearer way than I could. Or when it does it, I say, okay, yes, this is how I wanted to articulate. Or if not, you just say, no, I meant it in the other way. And as you said, Case, previously, it helps you, say it in the other words. Or, conceptually, okay, we had a proposal we've been working on. Initially, we agreed to frame it as one approach. After 2 iterations, we realized, okay, we want to propose the other way around. And then AI can just flip it around. It's not changing one sentence. It was changing the entire proposal story. I don't know how to measure that, but I can guarantee there's a huge ROI on AI that we use for whole that process of writing a proposal.
I mean, I don't even know how I wrote proposals before I started using AI. Now that you're talking about this, like, I guess I wrote them. That seems crazy. Um, but well, no, what I used to
I mean, did
do
we?
is no, I would have one and then I would copy and paste it, and like everybody basically got the same proposal versus now everyone gets a more custom proposal. That's actually what happens or did happen versus now. But that also reminded me, Klemen, of some sales conversations I've been on recently, that I think one cool thing about recording those is sometimes it helps you stay grounded in what's actually being asked versus your interpretation. And like a pro and con of using these transcripts is that tone is not picked up on and inflection and things like that. But also the positive side of that is like the words are just there and not, because we all are builders in some capacity. And I know myself, like I start hearing a problem and sometimes I start building it in my head, and then I stop listening because I start like in my head making it work. And then I do miss things, or I misunderstand like the actual purpose. I had a project 4 years ago that I did not do well on, and I think it was because I got ahead of myself and I lost track of like the client's goals because I started thinking like 10 steps ahead. So sometimes those transcripts in sales conversations can kind of also just help keep us grounded in the actual ask.
Yeah.
But
And
what's the
again,
price on that? To your point, like I have no idea.
well, that's the thing. There's like an element of things we've never done before, feeling better about the execution, even if the output stays the same. I mean, when you get a group of people together doing this, there is growth, like for sure. And it's like fun effort instead of grindy effort. Like maybe the concept of learning the hard way is a good way like to think about. You don't have to learn the hard way. Like anyway, you have to learn still. But I remember that the first time, like it's end of 24, because I didn't do proposals and scoping and all that stuff either. And it was like first time I made something like that with Claude after a couple conversations. I was like, oh man, I used to rely on everybody else for this, or it didn't get done. Like I tried to talk my way through it, which you can, but then you're focusing on different stuff when you're constantly explaining stuff and it's not documented. And that's where like it's interesting how much of that is within company control, where I guarantee Clemen's going to be able to look back and say, man, this is the part where we started documenting the hell out of our internal conversations. And when we didn't have them, there was a market difference in how productive we were, how successful we were during that time. And that's like not even clients. Like that's 100% under our control. And when companies are not great at training, internal communication, documentation, project management, and you happen to solve for that for the humans, there's like this mental load that goes away, anxiety that goes away. And if we ask AI to, it will start to detect this in our conversations. Because I mean, a lot of our conversations, how are you doing today? There's a lot less of, oh, it's going, and more of like, man, let me show you what I built today. Like, right? Bucket number 3 here, or number 2, sorry. Revenue protected, of course, like retention, expansion. Again, this is in terms of what you can control. Like if you have a customer base that is constantly emailing you and talking to you, the thing you still have to do is tell AI what is valuable in those conversations and help understand what should we be scoring on, what leads to expansion and retention. And so often it's focused on like more of the gap and more of what went wrong instead of like what's going right, and like how do we do more of that with the rest of our customers.
Yeah. I can't imagine doing this without some sort of AI component, because so much can just get missed when we're trying to interpret data, or there's a level of bias that we put onto some of this and what we expect behaviors to be. So we almost like need technology to tell us without our human biases.
I would maybe argue the value is completely the opposite, where because of AI, let's say, making recording sales calls and then customer calls, to your point, Casey, you can be present as a human being in that conversation. So you can ask better questions because your mind is listening and following the conversation, and AI will have way harder time figuring out from the transcript, cross-sell, upsell opportunity. But because you were super present on that call, at the 25th minute, you were able to ask the right question, which led the conversation for the upsell opportunity. Because you don't need to make careful notes for exact words, or you can always go back to recording and re-listen, or Claude goes through it and whatnot. So you can really have your mind being there to listen to them, to question them, to follow along the conversation. And because of that, the relationship is much better. And even more importantly, you can ask the questions you would miss in the past because you were making notes and thinking further from discussion.
Yeah. And like the pressure that goes away, or that can come from like needing to worry about KPIs like while you're on the call, right? And the moment that you hear frustration, like you're either trying to problem solve or being way too direct about it, like in the moment, you're not thinking it through, or you're just like out somewhere else now, worried about what's going to happen after this call based on the comments that you just heard. Or on the other side, thinking that you have to jump on every cross-sell opportunity signal that shows up instead of just taking a moment and asking why and getting more and more context and information so that after the call, you can think it through with the help of AI and actually say like, oh, this is the right time to do this thing, or let me bring somebody else in. And it, even though it can be very biased, it's still an objective like piece of the puzzle that helps us. Like, I mean, we're our own worst enemy sometimes. Like the human condition is to overreact and worry and like feel pressure,
Hmm.
right? And that's something I think can help a lot of folks right now. Um, and all of this, I think over time, you have to see the trend of like our people are feeling better, we're more successful, our customers are enjoying the relationship. A lot of similar metrics, just not boiled down to NPS scores,
Hmm.
right? The opposite of that, listening to folks. And I think when you plug it in with this third bucket here, like capability built, um, again, in the face of you haven't been great at training your teams, like, do you care about new capabilities for your team, or just have you been trying to farm it out or doing it for the bottom dollar? Because that's where, like, again, hours saved, lowest cost means greatest profitability. Like, that's not where we want to be. And when you can see a human light up
Hmm.
with this new thing that they thought was never possible or they've been wanting to do for 5 years, like it's change like you haven't seen like before.
Yeah. And because of AI and the build of something being just affordable for reasonable investment, now finally you can afford yourself as an organization to just build custom solutions tailored to how you want to work, not find ways around what existing tool stack allows you to do.
Hmm.
Which is okay, this is how we want to run the business because it is what it is. And with agents and custom built solutions, integrations, whatnot, you can now achieve that, which is, I think, down the road, on one side enablement, on the other side really the relief for the employees, because they're not burdened. Because we need that information, you just need 50 more clicks every day to just gather that data whenever we want it. Now you can just build one simple interface where you have those 4 fields to fill out when you need them. So you will not only relieve the burden, but you will enable people to give you the data you need for making kind of forecasting decision. In the past, you just couldn't have that data because no one was patient enough to click 50 times to get to the place to give you that data. Now you just build a simple app, whatever, to gather the data where they are. So instead of 5 minutes clicking, when they're tired, when they get to the field to give you that information, they will just give you random information. And now this is possible. In the past, it really was not.
I'm curious if you guys are seeing anything like this, because I am remembering which example was used in creation of this page to get to this. And it was so eye-opening to be able to help a team. Like, so I'm the HubSpot guy, like involved in implementation, but there is a market specific commerce platform in place that HubSpot cannot possibly replace, but it's not going well for them.
Hmm.
And you have to look at other options, and they've been putting it off forever.
Hmm.
And when we start talking about what they want, right, and then they just hear this is a group of folks that you would not necessarily associate with OpenClaw and like all of the other AI news out there, right? They certainly haven't been showing that kind of technological capability like during the project, right? But then
Hmm.
they get the itch and they start watching some courses. And then all I have to say is go have a 1 hour conversation with each other about what you need and want out of your new software
Mhm.
and then process it with AI into a functional requirements document. And then give that to the people who say that they're going to sell you the product that's going to work for you. And the confidence shift. It's like you go from having no leverage at all as a customer to all of a sudden, like there's no like tricks here. Like you're still not a technological expert and everybody knows that AI is available, but at least it's there to like, you're not just sitting on an island having to trust whichever vendor sounds the best, which is
Mhm.
where so many companies have been. And that was not something I expected going into the project, but you could see how much impact it had in like, because these kinds of projects are like interpersonally, people start going at each other real quick in conflict and like, I like this tool, you like that tool. Well, nobody knows what they're talking about at the end of the day. So you just avoid that. And that's so the capability of just understanding how to evaluate a purchase that's going to impact the business that much was something they did not have before. Right. And now they did. And it was just an interesting side of this to see. Now I'm going to catch up with them soon and see how they think about it from a value perspective. Knowing them, they don't care as much about measuring down to the pixel, but I guarantee they'll be able to put words to it, but
Mhm.
they'll never be able to assign dollars to that moment. Like time saved in having to pick between different vendors, time saved for how quick it's going to be implemented because everything's so clear out of the gate, because they could communicate more effectively during the entire process with each other and with people from outside of the business. So bucket number 3, capability built. If you're out there like and think that you've figured out how to assign value in new ways or the capabilities that your team has, everybody's building apps and cleaning data more than ever before, documenting their processes more than ever before. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to keep talking about this challenge and opportunity as we move forward this year. So I thank you so much, Clement and Casey, and we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah.
Take care.